All right, so let's see the last chapter from modern to postmodern, 21st century art. So 21st century art is now around the World War II period. Oops. So the World War II was brought to a terrifying end on August 9, 1945, when the United States dropped an atomic bomb on the Japanese city of Nagasaki. And the United States and the Soviet Union had emerged from the war as the two dominant superpowers were entering into the prolonged nuclear armed standoff known as the Cold War. So we are going to see the art movement about that era. Do you remember when the modern art started? It's starting from the Louvre Museum in Paris. So when the Louvre Museum built in Paris, the modern art started. The art opened to the public. So that was the beginning point of the modern art. So the postmodern art is started from the Museum of Modern Art in New York City, MoMA. The center of artistic energy had shifted. Several developments had paved the ways for this flowering of advanced art in America. So, the artistic movement is just, shifted to the United States. So one of the founding of the Museum of Modern Art in New York City in 1929. So this is the timeline. The modern art movement arose in Europe since foundation of Louvre Museum again in Paris. However, after the foundation of modern art here, the Museum of Modern Art in New York City, the art trends moved from Europe to America. So painters associated with the first major post-war art movement are commonly referred to as the New York School during World War II. And there are diverse art styles emerged in 60s and 70s in America. So now we are going to see the abstract expressionist and the one of the 60s and 70s art movement, pop art first. So let's see the New York School first. The New York School was a convenient label under which to lump together a group of painters also known as the abstract expressionists. Abstract expressionists were Jackson Pollock and Willem de Kooning. So let's see those artists. Now, we saw his work before. Paul Jackson Pollock was an American painter and a major figure in the abstract expressionist movement. He was widely noticed for his technique for pouring or splashing liquid household paint onto a horizontal surface, enabling him to view and paint his canvases from all angles. So this is his work. Jackson Pollock had perfected his drip technique named action painting. Pollock placed the unstretched canvas on the floor and painted on it indirectly by casting paint from a brush in controlled gestures or by dripping paint from a star stick. So layer after layer, color after color, the painting grew into an overall tangle of graceful arches, dribbled lines, splatters, and pools of color. And this is the next, artist Willem de Kooning. So Willem de Kooning was a Dutch-American abstract expressionist artist. The years after World War II, de Kooning painted in a style that came to be referred to as abstract expressionism or action painting. And he was part of a group of artists that came to be known as the New York School. De Kooning's well-known woman series began in 1950 and culminating in Woman 6 owes much to Picasso, not least in the aggressive, penetrative breaking apart of the figure and the spaces around it. It's very aggressive. The woman painting is considered as a significant work of art for the museum through its historical context about the post-World War II history and American feminist movement. He once believed that the history of female representations as the idol, the Venus, and the nude. Now let's see 60s and 70s art now. This is composer John Cage, and he said like this: music and art should be affirmation of life, not an attempt to bring order out of chaos, nor to suggest improvements in creation, but simply a way of waking up to the very life we are living. So most of the 60s and 70s art movements, the slogan was from like this. So like the Dadaists of 40 years earlier, young artists began mixing art back with life as they found it, and sometimes literally and often humorously. Critics called the trend Neo-Dada, means New Dada. During 60s and 70s, the directions that had been set out in the previous decade were continued, questioned, and complicated by new trends. So the first art movement in 60s and 70s we are going to see is pop art. Now, pop for popular. The artists of pop found a gold mine of visual material in the mundane, mass-produced products and the images of America's popular culture, such as comic books, advertising, billboards, and packaging, and the ever-expanding world of home appliances and other commodities, and photographic images from cinema, television, and newspapers. So like Neo-Dada, pop drew art closer to life, but life as it had already been transformed into images by advertising and the media. So we are going to see three pop artists. The first artist is Andy Warhol. Andy Warhol was born in Pittsburgh to working-class immigrant parents. Warhol earned a degree in design at Carnegie Institute of Technology in 1949. And he was an American artist, director, and producer who was a leading figure in the visual art movement known as pop art. His goal was to become a commercial artist, and within a year of arriving in New York City, he had top assignments from Glamour magazine, Harper's Bazaar, Vogue, Martini and Rosie, Columbia Records, and many others. His whimsical line drawings of cats, butterflies, and especially women's shoes like this made him one of the most sought and highly paid illustrators in the city. And after working as illustrator for only a few years, Warhol reinvented himself as a fine artist. He based his paintings on imagery he found in the American mass media, such as news, photos, celebrity headshots, film stills, comics, logos, and advertisements. To convert his source images into paintings, Warhol made them into photo silk screens and printed them on canvas. The smudges, misalignments, and inconsistencies were accepted, giving the paintings a handmade appearance despite his use of a commercial process. So I'm going to share a video how the artist create the silk screen work on the canvas with the pop art style. Yeah. So let's go back to the slide. So he created his work like that. And the result looks like this. So probably, you guys are very, familiar with, his work styles because, there are lots of his works, on the, the t-shirt designs. So sometimes the paintings include a single image, as in Marilyn Monroe and the Campbell's Soup series. So these become larger than life iconic portraits, while those printed in Greece suggest the way that repetition can simultaneously embed an image in one's memory and deaden its effect. These fresh, innovative works are considered icons of pop art and a movement that both critiqued and celebrated post-war American consumer culture. So by the end of the decade, Warhol had become a celebrity in his own right, equally famous for his platinum wig and the star-studded parties he threw at his studio, the factory. He called his studio as factory because he, products like, the artworks at the, just like, the factories do. And he created many of works like paintings, drawings, and sculptures, and even films at his studio, the factory. In 1968, Warhol was shot and nearly killed by the actress Valerie Solaris, who had a big part in one of his films. Post the shooting, his work became both more commercial and more introspective. He hired himself out as a portraitist, making flattering images of the rich and famous. But he also made haunting self-portraits that hinted at his purported fear of death. Although he was only 58 years old when he died, he left an immense body of work that seems increasingly relevant today as the distinction among art, entertainment, information, and spectacle continue to erode. Now we will see the next pop artist, Roy Lichtenstein. Roy Lichtenstein was born on October 27, 1923, in New York City. His father was a successful real estate broker, and his mother was a homemaker, and she had trained Roy Lichtenstein as a pianist, and she exposed Roy and his sister Renee to museums, concerts, and other aspects of New York culture. And Roy showed artistic and musical ability early on. He drew, painted, and sculpted as a teenager, and spent many hours in American Museum of Natural History and the Museum of Modern Art. So this is his work. So it looks like cartoon, right? So his work is inspired by cartoon, which is one of the America's popular culture. Lichtenstein used stencils, thick black outlines, and primary colors to elevate both commercial images and the commercial printing process into art. He used familiar imagery to create art that could be enjoyed by the masses after the serious and complicated abstract expressionist movement. And he said like this, pop art looks out into the world. It doesn't look like a painting of something. It looks like the thing itself. So let me share a video. So even though his work looks like very cartoonish, but so giant, so you're gonna be overwhelmed when you see his work of art.
Diagram is maybe a good word for the way I represent other artists. That may be true of cartooning, that it tends to be a diagram of a person. It seems to depict by outlining and delineating in a simple way what a subject is.
The studio was his favorite place. It was the idea that he could actually come down and play. Sometimes he just liked to come down and even clean his paintbrushes and look around at the work he was doing, at that time. Roy kept a pretty regular schedule. I mean, he was usually in the studio by 10, had the same thing for breakfast every single morning, broke for lunch, came back and worked.
It wasn't like I have to go to work today, God, I have to paint today. Nothing. It was his joy, it was his pleasure, it was everything. Sometimes I'd go to the studio in Southampton and he'd be alone in the studio. I'd sit in the little chair and watch him work. And I thought I'd be distracting him. No, I'd watch him work and he was just focused. Nothing to distract him.
He had never really dreamed that he would be able to support himself through just painting. That was something that made him truly happy.
So the question of the hour is, how are you going to work in Rome?
I'm going to do some drawing and thinking and mostly eating, I think.
He was exactly, the first day I met him to the day I never saw him again, the same way. Easygoing, charming. He wasn't judgmental.
I was working at the Bianchini Gallery in New York, and we did an exhibition called The Great American Supermarket, and thought, wouldn't it be great if instead of a regular poster, we could get Roy Lichtenstein and Andy Warhol to put an image on a shopping bag. They both agreed. And I met Roy in 1964 when he came in to sign the shopping bags.
Well, it was 64, so he was pretty well known. He was an internationally known artist. There was still great controversy. It was in the air. Is pop art serious? Is it this? Is it art? All that stuff was still up there. A lot of people were upset about it. You know, the abstract expressionists must have felt pretty upset because they saw their whole anguished world vanish in this kind of ironic and witty and beautifully done work.
What I did in these early paintings was frightening to me, really, and it seemed to go counter to a sense of taste I had developed along with, I would hope, a sense of art. Except I knew it had meaning, and I knew it very shortly that it had more meaning than the things I had done before. But because it was so different, it was really frightening.
He was not a fan of comics. It was the nature of the cartoon. It just seemed as far away from an artistic image as you can get, and to try to transform that into a formal painting really appealed to him. He also found it impossible to go back to doing what he had been doing. I must say, he never quite managed to get the tormented look in those paintings. He wasn't the tortured artist. He used to joke and say he was going to take curmudgeon lessons. When Roy was at Ohio State, he had an art professor, Hoyt Sherman, who was a huge influence on him. Talked all about ways of seeing and perception. He had methods of teaching where he flashed slides in a dark room really quickly and had people sketch them so that they could get kind of wholeness or gestalt of the work. That really had a major impact on Roy.
When I turn the work upside down, it's to obliterate the subject or to resense it. You can think of it more as pure mark than you can subject. You can see it clearly if you look at it through a mirror because it reverses everything, and anything you don't want is sort of doubly off because it's the other way around. It's almost the same as coming back 2 weeks later or something and looking at it, and you see what's off then.
Art's about something that's entirely different from what my original sources were. And I like the contradiction. I think people mistake the character of line for the character of art. But it's really the position of the line that's important, or the position of anything, any contrast, not the character of it.
Anything that was kind of high-flung always amused him, and he himself had just kind of natural humility, really.
I paint the pictures and he sells them. How's that? What could be better? It's pretty simple. Leo.
Well, I will try to be a little bit more complicated, but not too much.
Yeah.
And I would say that there are several kinds of relationships that can exist between the dealer and the painter. The best one is the one that's one of friendship, and that's what my relationship is to Liechtenstein.
Right. That's true.
Leo Castelli was his dealer for his entire life from 1961 until his death. They trusted each other completely. They never had a contract. Before he started to become kind of more successful and better known, he used to joke
And say, someone's going to be tapping him, Mr. Liechtenstein, it's time for your pills. And he'd be in a wheelchair and with his hat cockeyed on his head. And he would still be living in Oswego, New York, snowed in. And this would all have been a dream.
All right. So that was Roy Liechtenstein. So how do you think?
It was really interesting.
Yeah.
I was curious as to how he passed away. She mentioned.
That's right.
But it was really interesting.
Very interesting, right? All right. So now let's move on to the next artist, next pop artist, Jeffrey Koons. Jeff Koons is an American artist recognized for his work dealing with popular culture and his sculptures depicting everyday objects, including bone animals, produced in stainless steel with a mirror finish surfaces, just like this. And he lives and works in both the New York City and his hometown of York, Pennsylvania. This is his work, one of the most famous, his work. So Jeff Koons, he is one of the world's most expensive living artists, widely known for his bone animal sculptures. Began his bronze Hulk Elvis series more than a decade ago. And this is the Hulk Elvis work. So works from the ongoing series Hulk Elvis range from precision machined bronze sculptures, and it inspired by a flatable of the popular comic book hero and extruded in 3 dimensions. For Koons, the character represents not only Western comic book culture, but Eastern guardian god as well. And he said that they're there as protectors, but at the same time, they can become very, very violent. So the Hulks are like that. So they're really high testosterone symbols. And Jeff Koons designed Lady Gaga's art pop album cover as well. And he exhibited artwork at Gaga's art rave in the Brooklyn Navy Yard. So I'm going to share his interview video about his works of art. So let's see how he create his works.
I really did not know fine art as a child. I was learning aesthetics through my father. My father was an interior decorator, but I wasn't visiting art museums. And you have to learn how to trust in yourself. And when you trust in yourself and you follow your interests, that's really where you find art. If I think about striving for perfection in my work, I think right away of my father. Within our family, we always joke about when my dad would put up our Christmas tree, and we would always have hundreds of balls that would go on the tree, and he would each year dust all of them to be sure that they were really perfect, no fingerprints on them. And when I would work with an object, I would want every detail, every perfection or imperfection of the object. So when somebody would view it, that they could maintain this kind of suspension of disbelief and go along with this abstraction for as long as possible. So there's an aspect of control of vision to be able to achieve something that I picked up from my father. When I moved to New York, I really wanted to move into the objective. I did not want to paint what I dreamt the night before. I wanted to be involved with a more universal vocabulary. So I just started to work with ready-made objects. So there was a very kind of strong, kind of pop, Duchampian type of aspect to my work. And what I really found is that everything's a full circle. And it's like the yin and the yang. And the idea of the subjective to the objective, it's not a line, it's not a linear line that you have the subjective here and the objective here, but it's circular. I remember my art history teacher, the first time ever seeing Manet's Olympia. He put it up on the screen. He started to speak about this work and about the different symbols and different meanings, and I started to realize that this activity of art connects you to all the human disciplines. And I can be having a dialogue about sociology and philosophy and physics, I mean, all realm of the human disciplines. I just felt potential that I had an activity to be involved with that could connect me with other people. When I think, what an artist does, it's about making gesture. And a lot of people right away think about throwing paint or, making a physical gesture. But, you can make a philosophical gesture. And a lot of times people feel very inferior to art. They feel intimidated by it. But the art really happens inside you.
All right, so now we're gonna take a break for 5 minutes, and then we're gonna continue to see the 60s and 70s art movement in the United States. Okay, everyone, please come back by 9:18. For the later students, now let me just share today's schedule. So this is today's schedule. We just finished this, this 21st century art. Now, the first part. We're going to continue to see the 21st century art after the break, and then we're going to talk about the final sketchbook submission. And we're gonna have a break, another break. And then today is the last meeting before the final exam. We don't have next week's meeting because the college closed. So we're gonna do the final exam review after the second break. And I'm not gonna provide a recording for this final exam review. Please come back by 9:18. Everyone, please come back. Please
Professor,
welcome back. All right, so let's continue to see the rest of the art movement in 60s and 70s. So now, just to share this timeline again. We just saw, abstract expressionist art movement and the pop art movement in 60s and 70s. Again, the art trends shifted from the Europe to the United States after the foundation of the Museum of Modern Art in New York City. So, and this art movement was happening, during the World War II. So now we are going to see the photorealism, minimalism, installation art, conceptual art, video art, feminism, art, and postmodern art. So let's see the photorealism first. We just saw the pop art, right? And pop art focus on imagery in the mass media inspired artists to look more closely at photographs. In trend called photorealism, and they began to paint what they saw in the photographs. So Chuck Close is an American painter, artist, and photographer, and he makes massive scale photorealist portraits. Close often paints abstract portraits of himself and others, which hang in collections internationally. And Close also creates photo portraits using a very large format camera. So this is his work. Can you believe it? It's acrylic on canvas, which means a painting. It's a painting. It's one of the permanent collection of the Metropolitan Museum. So you will see this amazing painting in that museum. So if you have any chance, please visit that museum to see this work. So this super realistic portrait paintings on large canvases are his representative style of art. So Close had been known for his skillful brush work as a graduate student at Yale University. And Close began a series of paintings derived from black and white photographs of a female nude, which he copied onto canvas and painted in color. And as I explained in a 2009 interview, he made a choice in 1967 to make art hard for himself and force a personal artistic breakthrough by abandoning the paintbrush. And throughout his career, Chuck Close has expanded his contribution to portraiture through the mastery of such varied drawing and painting techniques as ink, graphite, pastel, watercolor, contact crayon, finger painting, and stamp pad ink on paper, and also printmaking techniques such as mezzotint, etching, woodcut, lino cuts, and silk screens, as well as handmade paper collage, Polaroid photographs, and daguerreotypes, and jacquard tapestries. Now let's see the minimalism art. So minimalism is art movement that began in post-World War II Western art, most strongly with American visual arts in the 1960s and early 1970s. And the art movement is often interpreted as a reaction against abstract expressionism and modernism. It anticipated contemporary post-minimal art practices, which extend or reflect on minimalism's original objectives. So this is the minimalism work by Donald Jude. Donald Jude was an American artist associated with minimalism. In his work, Jude sought autonomy and clarity for the constructed object and the space created by it. He abandoned painting for sculpture in the early 1960s. In his essay, Jude found a starting point for a new territory for American art, and his simultaneous rejection of radical inherited European artistic values, these values being illusion and represented space as opposed to real space. And the next art style is installation. Installation art is an artistic genre of three-dimensional works that often are site-specific and designed to transform the perception of a space. Minimalist sculptures were shown carefully positioned in the architectural spaces of a museum or gallery. An artist created installations as a space conceived of as works of art or viewers to enter and experience. And now let's see conceptual art. So conceptual art is art in which ideas are paramount and the form that realizes those ideas is secondary, often lightweight or unremarkable. Conceptual art is art in which the concept or idea involved in the art work of art take precedence over traditional aesthetic, technical, and material concerns. Conceptualism is not a style, but a way of thinking about art, and artists have put it to many different uses. So many conceptual artists worked with language or words when written take on a double life as image and idea. This is Yoko Ono's conceptual artist book work. An artist book is a work of art that is based on the idea of a book and what a book does. So we accept that books are made of paper, are bound, and contain information. The artist book plays on these truths. So that is conceptual art. Now, let's see the video art. So the next art trend in 60s and 70s is video art. Portable video cameras were first made available to the general public in 1965, and the first two works of video art quickly followed within weeks of each other. One was by Andy Warhol, who had been asked by a magazine to experiment with one of the new devices. And the other was by Namjoon Park, who recorded from a taxi his view of the papal motorcade during the post-history visit to New York in 1965. So this is the artist, Namjoon Park, and he was a Korean-American artist. And he worked with the various of media, and he is considered to be the founder of video art. Namjoon Park, internationally recognized as the father of video art, created a large body of work, including video sculptures, installations, performances, videotapes, and television productions. He had a global presence and influence, and his innovative art and visionary ideas continue to inspire a new generation of artists. So let me share a video to see his diverse video art.
Namjoon Park, I knew of his art long before I saw the piece in Trenton. People say he was the father of video art. He actually did found a whole new art form.
He functioned on a level that was sort of like a Picasso or an Andy Warhol in terms of international stature.
Nam June Paik's PBS 1963-2000 is a spectacular video sculpture at the former NJN Public Television Building in Trenton. It was installed in 1993. The New Jersey State Council on the Arts has just spearheaded its complete restoration. Tom Moran coordinated the installation with Nam June Paik in the early 1990s, when he worked for the New Jersey State Council on the Arts.
I basically picked up the phone and called him and told him about the project. I also said that just a few miles up the road was where the Sarnoff lab was located, and that was where the television cathode ray tube was developed. He was totally on board after about the third sentence.
Lauren Otis, Executive Director of Artworks in Trenton, coordinated the restoration. Artworks is also hosting an exhibition about the video wall.
The piece is three elements. It's the neon elements, and it is the video monitors, and it is the actual content of the video monitors.
One of the modules is surrounded by languages from around the world, and this is the Paik's concern, or his celebration more so, about communication.
There are old Korean symbols, Sumerian pictograms, ancient Brahmi characters, and others.
There's certainly a lot of reference to language, which is something that he was fascinated by, language. And he was speaking several languages: Japanese, Chinese, Korean, English. I believe he spoke German and French as well. He was fascinated with knowledge in general.
The second module of 26 monitors focuses on the development of the cathode ray tube. And there's a, kind of a cute little cliche image of a house. So the idea of the cathode ray tube linked to the house, it's obviously a symbol of how important TV became.
In the content, which is very rapid fire cuts and motion, he almost does a retrospective of a lot of his collaborations. So in the video that you'll see in Trenton are John Cage, David Bowie, Yoko Ono, Charlotte Moorman. All of these artists in the world of Fluxus, one of the movements that Nam June Paik was a part of.
By the late 1990s, the old TVs and neon in the PBS video wall started to fail. The sculpture went completely dark in 2011 when the state closed NJN and decided to have Channel 13 in New York manage New Jersey's PBS affiliate. George Zenowitz of Z Signs in Trenton repaired Paik's neon symbols.
It's a lot of fun. I'm excited to be part of it. It's a rare opportunity to get to work on a huge piece of neon art by a major artist. It's a light bulb. There's like 100 neon pieces in there, and there was about 9 of them that were burned out. What happens there, it's like old-fashioned Christmas tree lighting. When one burns out, everything else on that circuit also burns out.
C.T. Louie and Rafaela Shirley from CTL Electronics in New York worked closely with Nam June Paik and now help restore his installations all around the world. They recommended replacing Paik's old TV monitors with LED flat screens. It's not something that's been done with most other Paik restorations, but in this case, there was a compelling reason.
The masking has to move, right?
Yeah, the masking looks like it's off-centered a little bit.
The artwork, which is to be on 24/7 and under direct sunlight, it was a very judicious choice to evolve towards these flat screens.
We've been working on the restoration of this piece, redoing the neon, redoing the wiring, and today the final piece, which is getting in the new acrylic, and so now you'll actually kind of be able to see the neon as it was intended. The old acrylic got crazed and kind of obscured the neon a bit. This is the ultimate gig, for sure. And peeling stuff. There's always peeling involved.
NJN Public Television interviewed Nam June Paik in 1993, when PBS was first installed.
In my case, things are not only things, but what things can mean, you know? Not just by chance you pick up, you know, like Duchamp or Cage did it. But in my case, I construct something, you know, with that history.
He used something that was sitting in every middle-class living room, a television set, and he turned it into something else that people looked at and began to think about what was the meaning of this to their lives. He was very interested in the democratization of art and of ideas, and felt that television was one of the great ways to do that.
All right, that was Nam June Paik, the father of video art. Please remember his name. Now, let's move on to the feminism. Feminist organizations had originally been formed around such issues as equal rights and equal pay. Because images are so powerful and pervasive in contemporary society, and visual culture quickly became a feminist concern, both in art and in the media. Women art professionals organized to recover women's art of the past, to push for more equitable representation in museums and galleries, and to nurture contemporary women artists. Judy Chicago is an American feminist artist, art educator, and writer known for her large collaborative art installation pieces about birth and creation images, which examine the role of women in history and culture. By the 1970s, Chicago had founded the first feminist art program in the United States. So this is her work, Judy Chicago's Dinner Party. So this is perhaps the most important work from this time. So you can see this work when you visit the Brooklyn Museum in Brooklyn. So it's a huge installation work. A collaborative work, The Dinner Party, was executed with the help of hundreds of women and several men, arranged around a triangular table are 39 place settings, each one created in honor of an influential woman, such as the Egyptian ruler Hatshepsut and the novelist Virginia Woolf. The names of the additional 900 women are written in on the tile floor in the center of this work. Over the course of the 1970s, it became clear to many people that ideas about art that seemed to have been in place for much of the modern era were eroding, and that something different was taking their place. The new climate of thought came to be called postmodernism. The term postmodern was first used to describe architecture such as Renzo Piano and Richard Roger's George Pompidou National Center of Art and Center. So I will show you two famous postmodern artists now. So this is the first artist, Damien Hirst. So Damien Steve Hirst is an English artist, entrepreneur, and art collector. He is one of the young British artists and who dominated the art scene in the UK during the 1990s. And he's reportedly the United Kingdom's richest living artist. Most of Damien Hirst's works are focused on death, since his father's death. And his works are profound and give us thought about life and death. We saw this work before. For the Love of God is a sculpture by artist Damien Hirst, produced in 2007. It consists of a platinum cast of an 18th century human skull encrusted with 8,601 flawless diamonds, including a pear-shaped pink diamond located in the forehead. This one that is known as the skull star diamond. Let me share a video about the Damien Hirst.
My name is Anne Gallagher, and I'm curator of this Damien Hirst exhibition at Tate. We're about 4 weeks into the installation. It's a really complicated installation, so there's a lot of work to be done. And we've got about a week or so to go, but we're going to walk around, just talk about the pieces that are up and explain the chronology of the way the show runs through.
I was saying that in here there's lots of things that I'm embarrassed about, or things that I probably didn't want to put in, but then...
But they're important to show what follows.
Yeah,
like,
you and Nick talked me into it, really.
Yeah.
I completely hated them when I made them. But then I think, looking back, they do sort of make sense to the spot paintings, which I never really made that connection before. It was like the same colours in the pans or in the butterfly paintings in and out of love, or, you know, I wanted those, you know, bright, happy colours continually.
And then with Dead Head, which is like you when you're 16.
Wow, we've got a lot in this room, haven't we?
I know.
I forgot about that, yeah. Yeah, that was a photograph in the mortuary. Not in the mortuary, it was in the anatomy school, yeah. Yeah, so it wasn't really an artwork, it was just a photograph, but then I made it into an artwork when I started getting a bit of a reputation for being the deaf guy. It seems smaller to me now.
Really?
It's weird. Yeah, nasty piece.
Yeah.
It was just a desire to make art that was more real and about something important. You know, I kept thinking, I loved minimal art, but I kept thinking it's not about anything, and it sort of, you know, kept frustrating me. So in a way, the cabinets worked like a box to protect things. So I took that a bit further and just, you know, I just thought I'm gonna own this space or something, you know. And to, you know, in a way it was to, you know, you wanted to pull people in but then keep them out at the same time.
Yeah.
I always just thought, you know, you should never let lack of money get in the way of an idea or of, you know, something like that. And then obviously when I was a kid I'd seen Jaws. I thought, why can't we do a big shark? But I just immediately thought it's got to be big enough to eat you, and then in a volume of liquid that would be big enough to frighten you. Because the fear of it, you know, I remember walking through Richard Serra at the Saatchi Gallery and just thinking halfway through, God, this could fall on me and kill me. And sort of having being physically frightened of a sculpture. You know, the fear of these sharks is an unreasonable fear, but it's a good way to kind of tap into that fear of death, which is probably a reasonable fear. And large volumes of water are quite frightening anyway, in their own right.
And what did you think when you finally saw it? Was it the effect you wanted to achieve?
Yeah, it was like it's like the Jaws music.
So the acquired inability to escape, was that the first work that you made using cigarettes?
Yeah, I think it probably was.
And then afterwards came the rows of stubbed out.
Yeah, I got asked in an interview recently where they said to me, you said in an interview, because I don't smoke anymore, they said you once said you don't trust people who don't smoke.
Did you say that?
Yeah, I did in an interview, yeah. And they said, what do you say now? And I said, I don't trust people who do. Do you still smoke?
Yes.
Yeah. I'd love you, really.
So
Wow.
in and out of love.
If you can see people as flies, you can see them as butterflies as well. So I thought I've got to go the other way, like I was saying, where you kind of say, well, butterflies are beautiful as well. But then it's not beautiful if you look closely, because it's not beautiful for the insects. It's getting trapped in the paint.
Yeah, because there is that horror that they're actually.
Yeah, so I remember when I painted the edges of them in there, trying to make them look like they'd struggled and flapped about and just got stuck.
And then the live room, the live butterflies. I mean, when I first saw that, thinking, what is he doing? Creating this environment with butterflies flying around and actually hatching out of canvases.
I still don't know what I was doing. Originally, I bred butterflies in my bedroom at the time, so I was like, hatching them all out, and I tried to learn all about it. Yeah, I mean, I think when we started redoing it, I was a bit worried, because I thought maybe I'd, because you kind of romanticize things from the past, and I haven't seen it for so long. I thought maybe it was just like walking around stepping on butterflies, and it was all an illusion, and it never really worked, and didn't look good. But it's great to see it back together with the butterflies flying around and happy.
Yeah.
So nice to go in there, but then so nice to get out. Oh, they look great.
Oh, fantastic.
With the pharmacy installation, I wanted to get a pharmacy and put it into an art gallery, but one way you actually think you are in a pharmacy. And then, just to not even confuse you, it just makes you question everything. And when I originally showed it, when people went into the gallery, they kind of came in and then thought they were in their pharmacy, so they got back in the elevator, and everybody got stuck in the elevators and kept coming in and saying, where's the art?
Because it was in the gallery on...
Yeah, but I love art that does that. I love art that kind of confused you or made you not sure, or, you couldn't, you didn't know where the art was. But in a humorous way rather than a kind of heavy way,
Yeah.
Amazing, because the paints, they're household paints, but I think they're really good now.
They look really fresh.
I used to be depressed when they stopped, because they're great making them, great fun making them, and then when it stops, they're great, and then you kind of love it for a few weeks, and then you sort of know it, and it's like you just want to make another one.
So if you got the motion into it.
Yeah, but I remember thinking about that motion as well, and thinking it's the motion of the planet, it's the motion of the atoms in our bodies, it's, it's that circular motions, everything.
And we're going to show them in this room with Living in a World of Desire.
Loving in a World of Desire.
Loving in a World of Desire.
Although Living in a World of Desire is a good title as well. I could have done two.
You could do.
Living in a World of Desire. Yeah, it's going to be quite crowded, this room, but fun.
And a different pace, completely
Kids
different.
will love it.
And then we go back into the main room.
When I first did the first spot paintings, I did it as an endless series, and then I thought I should name them after drugs, and I got a book of drugs. I thought I'm going to do every drug under the sun, every drug known to man, for every painting, so it became this endless, infinite series, and I love that idea conceptually. I actually thought I'll start an endless series, but I'll stop somewhere, and but then I just keep coming up with other ideas where, like, this is a huge one, and it looks, it's totally different to one with 4 spots. So actually, the difference in the paintings was so great that I just kept making them, and then coming up with another idea and making another.
Mother and Child Divided, but that was the first piece where you cut the animals in half. So you see the internal organs as well as the hide or the skin.
But I love that inside-outside, where you get to see the inside and the outside. So it's whole, but it's dead.
And were you consciously alluding to Christianity when you talked about the title as being My Mother and Child?
God, Christianity I don't know about. It's like...
Subconsciously?
Well, I was brought up as a Catholic till I was 12, so it's like all that stuff goes in there, but it's quite difficult, I think, to... I wasn't directly, but I love stories from anywhere. I wanted to sort of play with the viewer, so if somebody says to me, is that religious? I'd be saying, well, what do you think?
Yeah.
Belief's a great thing to play with.
Will you suggest a range of belief systems like science?
Yeah, I think I did this series of prints called New Religion, which were very scientific, and I think science is a new religion, really.
Yeah.
Well, after I'd done pharmacy, I was kind of hijacking everything from all
scientific
world, yeah.
So you moved from that white coated wooden cabinet that you used in the medicine cabinets and then in pharmacy into these more really polished stainless steel, clinical looking.
Just clinical, but they have that fear again as well. You know, the same sort of fear you get in the shark, I think you get from these.
Yeah.
It's like, you know.
Well, the instruments look.
We're all afraid of surgical instruments.
But why are we? Why do we feel kind of comforted by medicine, and yet surgery makes us terrified in that they're both supposed to help cure you?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it's a kind of invasive procedure, isn't it,
exactly.
Surgery? I found an old Victorian tea tray which had the base of it under glass. They'd kind of, you know, somebody in Victorian times had put butterflies in it. And, you know, it just looked great. And I thought, wow, if you did those big, they're like kaleidoscopes. And kaleidoscopes are amazing anyway.
Yeah.
So. And then when it started looking like stained glass windows, I did this one, which is like the first one called Doorways to the Kingdom of Heaven, where I did them actually like stained glass windows. I remember reading that somewhere in an article, and there was like, they were saying that flagellation is one of the doorways to the Kingdom of Heaven, or prayer is another one, and there were like all these things.
So the flies that are buzzing around in 1,000 years, here you harness them and they adhere to the canvas. It's like a tradition of the monochrome, a black painting.
From a distance, you just think it's a black monochrome. It looks like tar or paint or something. Yeah. And then really, it's not until you get to about here that you realise it's flies. And when you're that close and you realise it's flies, it's pretty scary.
Yeah.
Because you just think, you know, it's a lot of death.
And then we're going to walk into the room that's bringing together the work that was made at the time of Sotheby's auction. So you created this wallpaper specifically for this room, but it's based on the catalogue?
Yeah, I made this wallpaper from the inside of the catalogues.
And the Kingdom was one of the 2 pieces in the sale that had a special little booklet for itself.
Yeah, exactly.
It's one of the key pieces from the sale. And it's another shark, something that you made very early on, and then 2008 you returned to it. And everything in the sale in a way is a kind of return.
Yeah, well, I made everything in that. Yeah, I wanted everything in the sale to be 2008 and just have like this big, huge, you know, it was kind of like an event really, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, so this room is the final room, which has got the incomplete truth in it. Yeah, so very religious. I think I've become a religious artist, haven't I? Although I deny it all the time.
But when you use this title, The Incomplete Truth, what were you suggesting?
I mean, I've always loved those statements. Never let the truth get in the way of a good story.
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, I think when you attach that to religion, it has a lot of resonance.
But the symbol of the dove is like, it's both a secular symbol of peace.
Yeah, well, you look at it, it looks like a dove flying in the sky, but it's actually a dove trapped in liquid. So it's like it has hope, but it doesn't have hope. But art can give us hope, I think, but religion can't.
But you like all these works that say one thing and then deny it at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, I don't think there are answers. I think there are only questions, and I think it's, you know, for viewers to decide what the answers are.
Yeah.
All right. So how do you think? He made lots of interesting works of art with very interesting and very creative angles for the life and death.
His explanation of a lot of it, like I liked his personality and the way he thought.
Yeah.
He seemed super cool.
That's right. I think so. I agree with that. All right. Now, let me introduce another contemporary artist, Matthew Barney. Matthew Barney is an American contemporary artist and director who works in the fields of sculpture, film, photography, and drawing, and whose works explore intertwining connections between geography, biology, geology, and mythology, as well as themes of conflict and failure. So Barney created 5 videos in a series he titled the Cremaster Cycle, named for a muscle in the male reproductive system. The videos are filled with odd characters like this, just like this, engaged in unusual behavior with no master plot or dialogue. Barney plays many of the characters in the film, and overarching theme is creation, including human reproduction. In this photograph from Cremaster 4, the first video, Barney presents himself as a satyr, the mythological creature who is part man, part goat. The character is inspired by a type of ram that lives on England Isle of Man, where the film is set. So I'm gonna share the Matthew Barney's Cremaster Cycle trailer video, not the full video. No, this is not the one. This is the process, how to create the the videos. 1 second. Let me share this video. This is the trailer video. So it's pretty much all settings and the characters, but was explaining the failure and the conflict of the life. So the chapter is done. Let me just share this week's discussion first. So we just watched it together, these two artist video, right? So, and then please write your experience of failure and how to overcome, or you can write your thinking about life and death. So, the Damien Hirst is dealing with the life and death for his work, and Matthew Barnett is showing the failure and the conflict from his film video. So please choose one of the topic and then write about your experience and how to overcome it and how do you think. And that's one of the this week's discussion. And the other one is related to the pop art. So this is the topic. Now, the pop art arose in 60s and 70s, and it is still popular work style of art. And pop artists such as Andy Warhol, Roy Lichtenstein, Jeff Koons use America's popular culture for their work of art. So please discuss America's or your home country's popular culture and tell us your favorite pop culture with a brief reason. And also you can attach some images to explain it. We have two discussions. And now let's talk about the final sketchbook submission. All right, so you know what? Again, today is the last meeting, and then 2 weeks later, you're gonna take the final exam, and we don't have next meeting on the next Saturday. So the late submission is not acceptable for this final sketchbook submission. If you now don't submit the final sketchbook submission, you're gonna get 0. But this is a huge percentage of your final grade, which is 20%. So you must submit it, okay, to pass this course. The due date is by Monday, April 18th. We still have 10 more days. No, 9 days, sorry. And then the sketchbook submission file form is provided in week 13. Right underneath this final sketchbook submission turn-in page here, you will see a attached file, the PPT file here, right? So when you click it, it's gonna be automatically downloaded. Then you will see this file. Okay, let me explain it when I'm done reading this slide first. So as I said in the beginning of the course, you must submit at least 6 of 8 pieces completed artworks. We made 8 pieces sketchbook project so far, and then we just posted work processes, right? Then you have to finish at least the 6 pieces of 8. So, and then you're gonna show me you're gonna submit the complete the 6 pieces at least. And if you submit all the 8 pieces completed artworks, then you will get extra credit to upgrade your final grade. Now, if you, have the low grade with the participations or midterms or the assignments, then it's a huge chance to upgrade your final grade. So please submit all the 8 pieces if you need to upgrade your grade. And then you're gonna upload your final sketchbook submission file in week 13, this turning page. So let me share this form. So like you can see, I've already made the form. You can just, attach your work picture in this file. So the first page is cover page. You can just put your name in this, name section. You can just, put your name here. And then from the second page, you will see the titles. So you will see this number, sketchbook, 2.1. So 2 means, the first number means the week. And the second number means like, discussion 1 or 2, like that. So you can easily, find where your work posted in the Moodle room. So you can copy and paste your the description about the work. So please take a picture of your finished work and then attach the picture in this file. And please write a short description about your work. Now, most of you write a short description in the Moodle room, right? You can just copy and paste here to save your time. So this title will be the navigation to search your work in the Moodle room. So the first work is logo design, and the second work is the asymmetrical drawing, and the third project is collage, and the third project is photography, and the fifth one is morphing drawing, sixth one is perspective drawing, seventh one is hand drawing, and the last one was transformational self-portrait. Can you see it, right? I'm sharing this file, right?
I see what you're doing, yes.
Huh?
Yes, I can see it.
Yeah. Okay. So, yep, like this. So you can use this form, or if you don't like that form design, you can just redesign it, okay? It doesn't matter. All right. Any question about this final sketchbook submission guide? Are we clear?
Okay.
Yes, we're clear.
Okay.
If we missed the assignment, like in Moodles, can we just like post it there too? And
yes, if you missed any assignments, please post it, and then you must send it, send me, by email to let me know, the which weeks missed or which assignment you missed, and then you post it in the Moodle room so I can track them and then upgrade your grade. All right.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And everyone, I will post your latest participation grade. So please check all your participation grade. And then if you missed anything, please post it as soon as possible. And after the same day, the same due date of this sketchbook, the final sketchbook submission, like Monday, April 18th, I'm not gonna get any late submission. So please complete any missing participation activities or assignments before this due date. All right. And again, after the due date, April 18th, Monday, I'm not gonna get any late submission. All right. So
did you grade 10, 11, and 12?
Yes, I did.
Okay, because all right, I'm gonna look and see. Because I know I didn't have 10, 11, and 12 in there.
Please check your grade and let me know if you have any questions.
Professor, what's your email? Because I missed one assignment and I did it, but I didn't email you because I don't know your email.
Okay, I will check your email.
Oh, okay.
Thank you for reminding me. All right, so we're gonna have a next break, the second break now, and then we're gonna review all the chapters for the final exam. So for the the final exam review, I'm not gonna record that part, so just keep in mind. So let me just pause.